Welcome back. And today we have a story that is equal parts surprising and completely consistent with the reputation of the state it comes from. Because when it comes to unusual headline-grabbing incidents, one particular state continues to deliver on a remarkably regular basis. And today is absolutely no exception. The person at the center of this story is Angela Faith Jordan. Now, with a name like Angela Faith Jordan, you might expect a certain level of professionalism and responsibility. But the details of this case tell a very different story, and they raise some serious questions about how this individual ended up in a classroom in the first place. Angela Faith Jordan was employed as a substitute teacher at Lake Manola High School. The key word there being was, because she is no longer in that position. She was removed after engaging in deeply inappropriate behavior while on school grounds and on the clock. During her time in the classroom, she behaved in ways that were completely unsuitable for an educational environment involving minors. She also made statements about her personal life that had absolutely no place in a school setting and showed a serious lack of professional judgment. Now, under normal circumstances, conduct of this nature from someone in a position of authority over students would trigger immediate legal consequences. This is not a gray area. This is a clear and obvious violation of the standards expected of anyone working in an educational institution. But here is where the story develops further, and the details that follow are worth paying close attention to.
Answer. She needs to leave the premises.
Okay.
Would you please escort her out?
Grab your stuff. You're leaving.
Oh, the first thing I need to get is that piece of paper, sir.
No, you're grabbing your stuff and you're leaving.
Oh, then please grab my stuff because I am not a threat and I will not be killed when I'm
Grab
with
your
my
stuff and you're leaving.
Okay, then my hands are tied, please.
Grab your stuff
it. Can
and
you
you're
grab it?
leaving.
Because I already got tased by the police
Grab
and I
your
double dare
stuff
you.
and you're
I
leaving.
already been tased by the police.
If I have to tell you again, you're going to go to jail for trespassing. They
That's
ask you
fine.
to leave. Grab
That's
your
fine.
stuff.
I already got tased by the
Grab
police in Pine
your
Hills.
stuff. I'm not in Pine Hills.
Okay, then you won't listen
Grab
to what
your
I
stuff.
said.
Grab your
Then
stuff.
you're gonna say I was a threat.
Grab your stuff.
You thought there was a weapon, right? Then
Grab
you're gonna
your
say
stuff.
I was a threat. Go, it's right there. I told you.
This
I'm
is your last
retarded.
chance. Grab your
Go
stuff.
ahead. Go ahead. Do
Okay.
it your way.
All right.
That's great. It's time. It's time. Because you can't even answer. You can't even do one instruction I asked for. No problem. Thank you, Jesus. It's time. I'm ready.
Hey, Robert. That's your point.
Yup. That's my water, my lunchbox.
My office.
And I need my piece of
okay,
paper
go ahead.
that's and I need my piece of paper that's up
I'm
there
just
too.
saying what's wrong with you, but
And I need my water bottle, please, sir.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Go.
No, I'm not done. I need that piece of paper. Don't play with me.
Go.
Oh, you want to abuse?
Now, looking at this woman's background and the circumstances surrounding her hiring, a lot of questions come up about how she ended up in a classroom in the first place, because the signs that something was seriously off were not subtle. This is not a case where someone slipped through the cracks undetected. Florida has developed quite the reputation, from Orlando to Miami, from Pensacola all the way through Escambia County. The state consistently produces stories that leave the rest of the country speechless. And yet somehow the hiring decisions keep getting made and the consequences keep landing on the kids who deserve better. Angela Faith Jordan had no business being anywhere near a school environment. The behavior she displayed wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, it pointed to something much deeper. And the fact that the system placed her in front of students without adequate screening is a failure that goes beyond just one individual. Florida, as a state, has some serious questions to answer about how it manages its schools and the people it puts in charge of young people every single day. But we move on because Florida is not the only state bringing heat today. Our next story takes us to Houston, Texas, and this one starts with a murder, a guilty plea, a court-appointed attorney, and ends in a moment of absolute chaos that you genuinely could not script. Now, committing a crime is bad, that much goes without saying. But there are ways to make an already terrible situation significantly worse, and our next subject found one of the more creative ways to do exactly that. His name is Jacarius. And look, no judgment on unconventional names, but when a man named Jacarius ends up on a true crime segment, it does make you wonder about the power of a name. 2 years ago, Jacarius took someone's life. He was convicted, pled guilty, and found himself standing in a courtroom facing 50 years in prison. With no money for private counsel, he was assigned a state-appointed attorney, which, under the circumstances, is the best help he was going to get. So, what did he do? He punched that lawyer clean in the face and knocked him out, right there in the courtroom, before heading off to serve half a century behind bars. Now, Houston is no stranger to wild stories, but even by Texas standards, this one stands out. And if you think that's the most unhinged thing we're covering today, just wait, because South Carolina is coming up next, and that one is in a category all by itself.
Petruzzi says he's represented hundreds of murder defendants, but he said what happened yesterday with his court-appointed client was a first for the veteran attorney. On the surface, the PSI hearing in the 178th Judge Kelly Johnson's court was fairly routine. 27-year-old Jacarius Lewis pled guilty to a murder that happened in April of 2024 at 7959 Sunbury. Lewis was facing 5 to 50 years. The state recommended 50 years, and the judge agreed.
The judge pronounced the sentence, and at that point, apparently, now I was out, my client hit me in the face, and people in the courtroom say that I fell back. I was standing, I fell back against a chair, and then I hit a counter and hit the back of my head and apparently fell on the ground. But I don't remember any of that. And then the next thing I remember is I'm standing in the courtroom and there's just a ton of people there, bailiffs and paramedics and all kinds of commotion. And then somebody said to me, "John, do you realize that your client just punched you in the face?" And I said, "No, I didn't know that."
Now, credit where it's due. The attorney who got knocked out apparently handled the whole thing with a remarkably good attitude. By his own account, he was sitting there one moment, and the next thing he knew, he was waking up with a crowd of people standing over him. He said he didn't feel a thing, which is honestly the best possible outcome when someone decides to use your face as a punching bag. But here's the thing. The only real difference between what happened to that lawyer and what happened to Jacarius's original victim is that the lawyer got back up. One person woke up, the other one didn't, and Jacarius somehow thought it made sense to add another assault on his record on his way out the door to serve 50 years. The layers of poor decision-making here are genuinely staggering. But we keep it moving because love, depending on where you live and how far gone you are, will push people into decisions that defy all logic. Our next story comes out of Charleston, South Carolina, and it involves a 25-year-old woman named Jeremiah Kiani Pinkney. On April 13, 2026, she was working her shift at a Dollar General store when she called the police and reported that an unknown man had entered the store, kept his hand concealed under his shirt as if he had a weapon, and demanded money from the register. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a straightforward armed robbery report. The problem is that law enforcement does this for a living. They ask follow-up questions, they look at surveillance footage, they cross-reference details. And when the story starts falling apart under that kind of scrutiny, which it did, the picture that emerged was very different from what she initially reported. Investigators determined that the robbery had been staged. Pinkney, who was the store manager, allegedly fabricated the entire incident. The reason? She needed money to bail her boyfriend out of jail. She was charged with breach of trust with fraudulent intent, conspiracy, and filing a false police report. She was taken into custody and held on a $50,000 bond. So let's think about this for a moment. Her boyfriend was already behind bars, and his solution, or at least the plan that got carried out, involved putting her in legal jeopardy too. Now, instead of one person in custody, there are two. The relationship that was supposed to be worth saving has now cost her her job, her freedom, and her record. All for a man who was already in a cage and somehow still managing to make things worse for the people around him. Ladies, the decision-making has to improve. It simply has to. And that brings us to the end of today's lineup. 3 stories, 3 states, 3 people who had every opportunity to make a better choice and somehow found their way to the worst possible one instead. First, the substitute teacher from Florida who turned a classroom into a personal stage and saw absolutely nothing wrong with it. Then Jacarius from Houston, who capped off a murder conviction and a 50-year sentence by knocking out the one person in the room who was legally obligated to help him. And finally, the Dollar General manager from Charleston who staged a fake armed robbery in the name of love and ended up on the wrong side of a $50,000 bond. If there's a Dusty Award to hand out today, the field is competitive. The teacher gets some grace. There are clearly mental health factors at play there, and while Florida absolutely failed by putting her in that building, she deserves more help than ridicule. The Charleston situation is its own category of baffling, and that city is earning itself a permanent spot on the radar. But Jacarius, knocking out a man so cleanly that the victim woke up confused and somehow cheerful about it, that's a level of chaotic energy that's hard to top. The Dusty Award goes to him. Enjoy the next 50 years, brother. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so you never miss an episode. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and we'll see you next time.